Hey, what's up YouTube? This is the Mermail Master coming at you from the Team Time Riders YouTube channel with an updated deck profile on my secret rare Cased Party Challenge deck for the Pegasus Challenge. I've been consistently updating this deck and trying to figure out what plays would work best in it. I found a couple of other cards that I'd like to run, and including some interesting things that have been new as of the most recent sneak peek. So, without further ado, let's get into the deck profile. So to start off this deck profile, we have 3 copies of Metaion the Time Lord. This is pretty self-explanatory. Summon this guy, sit on him for a turn, and if your opponent's got a full field of monsters, bounce them back to their hand, and they take 300 damage for each monster bounced that way. In addition, when you control no monsters, you can normal summon him to the field. And that's going to be a pretty, like often scenario or circumstance that would happen. The next card we have is 3 copies of Shadow Vampire. This has remained the same from the previous deck profile, but with one more addition, and that is a singular copy of Vampire Dragon. I'd actually forgotten about this card for a while. This was a secret rare out of Extreme Victories, and not really something that a lot of people were a fan of pulling out of that set. And the reason why it's in here is it basically fixes so many problems in the deck. It's a tribute monster. It can be special summoned from the deck out of Shadow Vampire due to the fact that it's also a vampire. And it has the ability that when its tribute summon card is sent to the graveyard, that you are able to add 1 level 4 or lower monster, any level 4 or lower monster, straight from your deck to your hand, which is very, very good. So that's those 3. Now moving on to the 1-0s. 1 Breaker the Magical Warrior, pretty self-explanatory. Very, very good card to be running. Pop spells or traps in the back row. Yeah. 1 copy of Dark Grepher. This can be a big tribute monster for you. Tribute summoning with Dark Grepher, ditching some dark to the graveyard, loading up the graveyard for your recurring nightmare plays, and just getting back just general advantage. You do generate some advantage with dark monsters in the deck, so it's absolutely necessary. Then we have 1 Majestys Fiend, pretty self-explanatory in here, negate all monsters effects and prevent them from activating, and this can actually do very, very good work against your opponent. 1 copy of Dark General Freed, a level 5 monster, and he's in here for fetching dark monsters from your deck to your hand, and he's also a secret rare as well, so why not? For the next card we have is 1 copy of Dark Red Enchanter. As I mentioned in previous videos, this was the card that sort of inspired me to build this deck, and thanks to Dark Red Enchanter, getting a bunch of spell counters, activating some more spells to boost this guy up to like 3,000 or 31, attacking, and then main phase 2, removing 2 of those spell counters to rip a card out of your opponent's hand can sometimes be a devastating play, specifically if you get that Raigeki or you get that other play. And this is a good thing. Maybe one day they'll make a counter trap card that will, remove a spell counter from the field to negate the activation of any of your opponent's cards and destroy it. I don't really count spell vanishing or any of the counter traps from Magician's Force because they all require like discards and like other really crappy things. So yeah, Dark Red Enchanter. For the next card that we have, it's 1 copy of Carb Blocker. Now this card is actually really good for something new that I added into the deck, which is the Carb Blocker plus Pinpoint Guard sort of thing. Now this is like something that you never ever think of unless you are a really, really casual player, and it's like a stupid combo that really sucks otherwise, but when you pull it off, it has like as good of a feeling as resolving Full House. Now for those of you who don't know, Card Blocker and Pinpoint Guard are 2 cards that were released like maybe 10 years apart, and probably something that most people would not even consider to put together. So the basic play is that Card Blocker has the ability when he comes to the field, you put him in defense mode. When your opponent attacks into him, you mill 3 cards off the deck, and any monster that your opponent attacks must go into him. And unlike Card Trooper, Card Blocker can activate his effects as many times as you want during a turn, which means if multiples of your opponent's monsters attack into Carb Blocker, then Carb Blocker will keep milling things off the deck and keep boosting up his defense to insane heights. So combine that with Pinpoint Guard. Let's say you have a monster that you want to protect on the field, something that you want to tribute off on the next turn. Let's say you have like Invader of Darkness on the field or something, and your opponent's got like a Blue Eyes or something that they want to pop it with. Your opponent attacks into Invader of Darkness, flip Pinpoint Guard, special summon your Carb Blocker from your graveyard, and then mill 3 cards off the top of your deck, and Carb Blocker will take the attack, and since it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, they cannot target any of your other monsters on the field for attacks that turn. So yeah, that's that combo. I just thought I'd like to get that out of the way, just to show you kind of how cool it can be. The next cards we have in the deck are 2 copies of Fire Hand and Ice Hand. Very, very good cards. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. Bounce and, get more damage in. Then we have, of course, the Bellwether Invader of Darkness for negating quick play spell cards and, a Twin Twister or something like that that would normally pop your field. Then we have one of my favorites, which is the Fiendish Engine Omega. Don't ask me why I like this card. This is one of Bandit Keith's cards, and I mean, it shouldn't have really even been printed, but I'm glad that Konami decided to print it, and it was a secret rare out of a set that I never opened, Duelist Genesis, so I never had to be the one to pull it, but, thanks to whoever pulled this card out of the pack and kept it in very, very good condition, I can now use Fiendish Engine Omega, boost himself by attack points, and then be also able to special summon an engine token at the end of each of my turns. The same Card Blocker play excuse me, will work on Fiendish Engine because it special summons the tokens in attack mode. You get up a bunch of tokens and then you tribute them all off. For the next play, of course, we have Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. Very, very good card. When your field is empty, because your opponent always wants to pop your stuff, you can special summon Gorz, and his token can be used for tribute summons of whatever you want for the next turn. Then we have, of course, Mechlord Emperor Skeel, the only secret rare Mechlord of all 3 of them. Also a very good card, and very interesting card to play with. Special summons when a monster is destroyed by card effect, and can steal a Synchro monster. Then we've got Ice Master, Let It Go, Let It Go. Spellcaster, and can be easily special summoned by tributing 2 waters. And in addition, you can place an ice counter on monsters and tribute this thing to destroy all monsters with ice counters your opponent controls. And the final card in the deck for monsters is Puppet King. As I mentioned before, when your opponent searches from your deck from their deck to their hand, special summon this guy to the field. Alright, so that's it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells. We have Clear World. I wish I could say this was self-explanatory, but it's not. For those of you who've watched my previous deck profiles, this gains abilities based on each of the cards that you have on the field. So for dark monsters, 2 or more can't attack. For light monsters, the field must be you must play with your hand revealed at all times. For wind monsters, take 500 life point damage every time you activate a spell. For earth, destroy a defense position monster you control. For water, discard 1 card at the end of the turn. And for fire, take 1,000 damage. You'd be surprised how trolly and how beneficial Clear World can be for your side of the field, and just stymieing your opponent, completely revealing their strategies, such as a Psyframe player, such as Psyframe NG, revealing his entire hand and showing you exactly which Psyframes he has in hand, thanks to the effect of Clear World. Playing against Team Time Riders Dark World as well, running this with 2 or more Dark World monsters on the field. Any monsters he controls automatically cannot attack. In addition, any fire monsters, such as the Zen Mines he would make, cannot activate their effects without taking that 1,000 damage. And it basically directs like cards toward it so that you try and pop it and do something with it. But I've always wanted to play Clear World as a card in any deck that I would run, and now that I can finally run Clear World, it's just been an absolute dream. It's a fantastic and amazingly fun card, and just makes dueling a lot of fun. So if you can pick up Clear Worlds, by all means run them in whatever strategy you can make them in. So I just think they're that fun. Next, we got 2 copies of Recurring Nightmare. We got a lot of vampire things and things with 0 defense. Add them back to your hand. Unfortunately, it only allows you to add back exactly 2 and not less than 2. But with 2 copies of Recurring Nightmare in this deck, you can run things such as your vampire dragons and stuff like that. Activate Dark Grepher's effect. Send them to the grave. Send your vampires to the graveyard, activate Recurring Nightmare, fetch him back, and then possibly do a tribute summon into like some kind of XYZ for a rank 5. So that's those 2. Next card I've got is Shared Ride. I can't remember in the last profile whether or not this was a new addition, but it's a great card nonetheless. Shared Ride, every time your opponent searches from their deck to their hand, in addition, like, this is another thing that counteracts searching like Puppet King does. You add 1, you can draw 1 card from your deck. So if your opponent's got several searches or they're playing like Necros or something like that, you just flip that Shared Ride right up there. Whenever your opponent searches, you draw, and draw. I actually had one of my opponents take a challenge on me, and I ended up drawing 5 cards off the top of my deck. So Shared Ride is super good, and you absolutely should run this card. 1 copy of Galaxy Cyclone, pretty self-explanatory, popping back row and popping like other stuff. Maybe I'll throw a Cosmic Cyclone in here if I get it, but I did think that Galaxy Cyclone, has a little bit of more usefulness and a little bit more versatility in some situations than Cosmic Cyclone, because specifically in this deck where advantage is not generated as fast as something more competitive, you basically need to have Galaxy Cyclone in here to get 2 pops instead of just 1. For the next card we're running, we have 1 copy of Advanced Zone. This is a brand new addition to the deck. I'm looking for its other sibling, Trial and Tribulation, but you do a lot of tribute summoning in this deck. So basically, when you activate this card on the field, and you tribute summon, during the end phase, you can activate effects based on how many monsters you tributed for a tribute summon this turn. 1, 2, or 3 monsters. Based on those number of monsters, you can, basically do tribute summons. So for 1, you get to pop a set card on the field. For 2, you can draw a card from your deck. And for 3, you can add any card in your graveyard, I think it's or any monster card in your graveyard, back to your hand. So 3 very good effects that you can use with Advanced Zone if you tribute a whole bunch of monsters. Things that count as 2 tributes or other tribute things allow you to get benefits. Still though, I think that Trial and Tribulation does have some better effects than Advanced Zone, but I'm still going to be running Advanced Zone in the deck because it's just generally a really cool card, and it's also a very cool secret rare. The last card I'm running in the deck is 1 copy of Guarded Treasure. Now, I've been thinking about like this, and then also possibly throwing like a Pot of Desires in here or something like that, since it's also a secret rare. Generally, like the cards that you get in the deck like have the same amount of usefulness. And with Pot of Desire, like, there's no one card in this deck that you can use with Guarded Treasure or Pot of Desires that really grants you more utility. Like, there's not like one main utility card in this deck that you absolutely have to have. It's just a mediocre, kind of fun deck. So Guarded Treasure, most of the time you're not going to see any of the cards that you discard with Guarded Treasure for the rest of the duel. But, having this card on the field, drawing 2 turn cards right off the top, and then drawing 2 more cards every single turn can be just like a beneficial thing, especially if your opponent doesn't have any way to get rid of it. And it's just also a fun card that has like some interesting interactions, and just resolving this and spending multiple turns drawing 2 for your draw phase instead of 1 is kind of a fun play. Gets you to your plays faster, and you won't really lose much by discarding your hand in this deck specifically. So finally, moving on to the trap cards. For the trap cards, of course, like the last time, we're running 2 copies of the first Monarch. The first Monarch is a great card, specifically in this deck because of how much you tribute summon. And with the different attributes, most of them are dark, so you don't have to discard, but you can discard 1 card from your hand, make the card any attribute. So if you have some non-dark tribute, you want to tribute for a Metaion on the field, or you want to tribute for something else, you have the ability to do so. And the first Monarch just is a very versatile card, and I'm really, really glad that it was printed as a secret rare. So, yeah. One copy of each of the secret rare Mera Forces, and we're talking one Storming Mera Force and one Drowning Mera Force. I shouldn't really have to explain why these are necessary in the deck. Just awesome, like blanket protection for all of your cards. So people may be asking, ooh, why don't you run 3 or why don't you run 2 or something like that? Well, the secret rare deck is, focused not only on competitiveness but also on fun. The funnest kind of plays that you can make are from cards really that people don't see too often. So if you have too many Drowning Mera Forces or too many whatever, it becomes not fun for your opponent. But yeah, Drowning and Storming Mera Force are kind of cool cards to run. Next card we got are, of course, Ring of Destruction. Ring of Destruction is pretty self-explanatory. Pop cards on either side of the field, and yeah. One copy of Time Space Trap Hole for negating pendulum summons and negating other things. Your opponent pendulum summons 5, shuffle them all back to the deck. Usually they don't have a play. From that point out, you can continue putting pressure on them to win. We got one copy of Vanities, Emptiness, pretty self-explanatory. Your opponent wants a special summon, you say no. Then we have one copy of Mistake for the same reason, preventing searching. You don't do any searching in this deck. You just draw and you just gain slow advantage. So stopping your opponent at all costs from doing their search effects is kind of a necessary evil in this deck. And the final card I run is one copy of Smashing Horn. Negate any horn, negate Solemn Judgment, negate Solemn Warning. Pretty much any card that would activate to negate the normal or special summon of a monster, you can activate this card, negate that effect, and destroy it. So, yeah, pretty, I guess you would say, situational card, but I've yet to resolve it. But when I do resolve it and negate a Solemn Warning that my opponent's not expecting, they're going to be in for one hell of a surprise. So, yeah, this is the secret rare deck video updated once again, and for the first time in its entire history since its inception, it is finally a 40-card deck. So I'm super, super excited. The deck has been testing very well, and just playing random duels against random people and doing stupid shit is a fun that cannot be understated. So yeah, if you like the video, please remember to give a like, comment, and subscribe. Also +1 for that beautiful new Invasion Vengeance playmat right here. This was really, really awesome playmat that I won at the sneak peek. And yeah, if you like the video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time. This has been the Mermaid Master with the Team Time Riders YouTube channel, and I'm signing out. See you guys.